So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome, awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Excellent, and welcome everyone to another edition to the Esports Talk session. And today we have a special guest and a special friend too on top of that. What can I say? But before I introduce our special guest, I'd like to quickly go over an announcement with you all, and that's to say that we thank you, you the viewers, you that are tuning in to watch us, to support us, to be there. And just a quick reminder that we do have other social media outlets there for you on our channel. We encourage you to give us a like, give us a follow, leave us some feedback. All of that is something that we thrive in, and without you, we're not able to continue this. We do it all for you. So without any further ado, today's topic is combating gaming fatigue in esports. And with us today is Elise Freeman. And Alyse, welcome and thank you for coming into the program.
Thank you, Ruben. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So Alyse, please share with our viewers and with everyone that's watching, what is it that you do and what you study? And I understand you're also a DH alum, so putting up the Toro horns up. So please share with us a little bit of what you're currently working on and yeah.
All right, awesome. Like Ruben mentioned, my name is Elise Freeman. I am originally from the Bay Area, but I currently reside in Southern California in the Los Angeles County region. I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from Dominguez Hills. I'm a proud alum and definitely feeling the Toro pride in my spirit right now. In addition to that, I'm a second year student at I'm a second year master's student at Cal State University, Long Beach. So I'm working towards my master's degree in exercise science. So that's really cool. And I'm really looking forward to the progress and, just different things that I'm learning there within that program. It's really great program and I'm proud to be a part of it. And just to give a little bit more insight in regards to my background and just a little bit about me, I'm also a certified personal trainer. And I also am certified as a mental health first aid responder. So those were two things that are really near and dear to me. And I love the learning experience and opportunities that I had that came along with getting that knowledge and insight. when it comes to gaming? That's a very big question since, this is an esports platform. I am a big fan of gaming, but I don't have as much time to get behind the sticks as I would really like to. Between my internship with Sports Corner LA, with work, which is 40 hours a week, sometimes plus, to be honest,
Mhm.
and just school overall, the classes that I'm taking, I don't have as much time as I would really like to. But I will say I'm a sucker for old school games. Those classics. Arcade games are something that I definitely love. But classics,
Nice.
Donkey Kong, Pac-Man,
Yeah.
Tekken, Street Fighter, Mario. The list could go on. Anytime I could take it retro, I definitely would love to.
Love it. Love it. Oh my gosh. We're going to have to do a retro gaming night one of these days.
Yes,
Just take
please.
us all back.
Yes.
How cool. Thank you, Elise, for sharing that. And so, again, we reach out to you because of your level of expertise and even the things that you're studying now. So much new information, new technologies too, on top of that,
Yeah.
that are making major changes or impacting, even in the smallest ways, that could lead into something big,
Mhm.
that could be preventative, right?
Right.
To avoid, other stressors. And fatigue is something that I know we can all, one point or another in our lives say, hey, you know what, I'm experiencing it. You know what I mean? I need that fatigue to wear off so I can, gain that energy.
Mhm.
When people say that, they're describing how they're feeling, but may not know deeply what's actually going on, right?
Right.
And that's where we need expertise, or we need professionals, right? Like your caliber to give us that insight. So please share a little bit about like what you've noticed in working with other esports
Mhm.
players, or just people that do game and realize, hey, I'm getting to this point of fatigue. I'm not doing the best. I'm obviously not climbing the rank as I want to. What is it that I can do to essentially be the best version of myself when I enter the space?
Yeah. Well, I will first say, we have to put our mind around the definition of fatigue.
Mm.
This is no Webster definition. This is, how I interpret fatigue, and I'll talk about this concept as we proceed forward. But fatigue is really just excessive tiredness,
Mm.
and it's from mental and physical exhaustion. So when we keep in mind exhaustion, it's because the root is tiredness.
Uh,
So we have to think about certain factors when it comes to our daily lives that can also be impacting us. So it's not just gaming fatigue, but what are those other daily activities in our lives that are causing us to feel burdened or to feel tired or to feel mentally stressed or weighed down? Because gaming is a little bit more of a mental game than a physical
right.
game. We may have so many clicks per minute by the hands, but our eyes and our minds are the things that are going a mile a minute. So we have to keep that in mind. What are those things that are going to help us give more attention and more focus? Because nowadays we have to also recognize this virtual environment that we're in. With COVID, classes are online. Sometimes family reunions are online, work is online, so many things are online. And then we go into this virtual setting, such as our, gaming environment. And where is that at? It's online or behind a screen. It just depends on the platform that you're utilizing. But when it gets to that, we have to recognize that if we are burnt out, and that's a new term, that it's not so much a new term, but it's a term that is becoming more polarized in a sense. Burnout, your Zoom burnout, online, burnout, just burnout overall. When you think about that, you also have to keep in mind that you have to pay attention to your body, and to your environment and what's going on in your everyday life. Because if you are burnt out, then you start to have symptoms of that very thing. You want to quit. Your performance begins to lack. You're not as alert. So many things have like a trickle effect. Our attitude begins to change. Our perception begins to change about some of those same things that we love. So when I think about, how do we combat that, and how do we really begin to find ways to address how to have that energy to play the game at our peak performance, whether it's for recreation, or whether it's because we're trying to go pro, or whether it's because we're trying to carry our weight as a team member. We have to make sure that we're taking care of self in order to be able to be our best selves for those who are relying on us, especially since so many games are a team game in a video gaming environment. Some are solo, and you can practice solo, but sometimes you are in a team environment. So to be your best, you have to in order to perform at your best, you have
Right.
to be your best. And it really just has to do with, I think, self-care and awareness.
Yeah, no, and I love that you share that. I think that's such a good point to focus on. A lot of what we do in esports, it's all a team-based mentality, right? It's all team-based, where you're relying on, your partner or your, other members of the team, whether they're subbing in, subbing out. But if we're not in that space where we're actually taking those steps for self-care, then it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be an upward hill battle already. And that's the mental part, right? That's the part that forget the clicking and the movement and even the stretching that takes place with all that's going to lead into hopefully you're feeling alerted in the actual game, but the mental aspect is a key identifier of what it is our performance is going to look like today.
Yeah.
And you're only hoping that the other team is probably feeling as fatigued, if not worse, you know what I mean? If you think you're going to climb out of that one. And I think that's the piece too, right? At least like, I was just going to say, like, when, as you're defining fatigue, what it is that's impacting your day to get to a place that you actually like to do or even love to do with others, before either assessing how that game went, kind of take a step back and see, okay, let's be real with ourselves.
Yeah.
Did I bring it today? And when I mean bring it, did I feel burned out today?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I didn't confide that with my team, but that would be something helpful to identify, to assess, to say, okay, let's see what it is that we need to do better for you individually so that you feel that you're getting to a space of, I'm balancing a little bit more so that I can now be in a space where I'm not fatigued, or at least there's a difference in that area of space. So I can move on to the actual gaming platform and feel like I can execute to the best of the ability.
Yeah, definitely. And even to piggyback off that a little bit, communication is key, especially when you're in any team environment. And going back to even that concept of burnout or gaming burnout, we could say, I sometimes think that pressure comes from sometimes self, but sometimes external factors. So we have to ask ourselves if it's fatigue from gaming burnout, is stress and pressure meeting that's causing us to feel this negative way, because it's going to impact our performance. So, there's always or not always, but there may be the pressure to practice more, or the pressure to move up the ranks, or maybe even the pressure of competition, or to keep your name high. Prominence is everything. You want your name to be at the top or whatnot. You want to be, revered and things like that. So it's just like, when it comes to burnout, is it self-inflicting or is it team inflicting, or what is it? You even think about pro players in esports, or people who are associated with major franchises and stuff like that. What are the demands that they're putting on their players when it comes to sponsorship, when it comes to the big checks that they get sometimes? Are they putting them pressures on themselves so they can continue to get those $100,000 checks, so they can keep their name in the ranks? So it's all about personal assessment and recognizing what you feel and why you may feel that way, because you may be able to eliminate external stress if you know where it's deriving from. Or in a team aspect, you may be able to communicate that to your teammates and say, hey, I'm feeling this way, and as a result, X, Y, and Z, or my performance is bad because I am really tired, I feel a lot of stress, or hey guys, we have been playing 6 hours no break, anybody want to get some water, or anything like that. So it's just communication is key with everything. But that's just something I thought about as you mentioned.
No, it's so key, and it's so true. I think you could maybe survey every esports team in the world, and I think they'll all say top 3 responses: communication, right? That's super vital. And I think even just like, as you're saying, these are ways to identify and combat. It's almost like within even every scrimmage match or practice, or even matches, it's a little hard to tell just because of rules, right? Every tournament or every conference has different set of rules, but to almost embed sort of minor ways at that moment of how can we like get you out of that fatigue zone so that you're entering a space as much as possible, which is whether I need water, I by my side, I need to be able to do a quick, stretch here and there between these pauses in the game. I need to incorporate better snacks to give me, essentially a boost
Yeah.
of energy to feel like I'm alerted and awake, so that I can help not only my individual, player, but also my teammates, and give
Mhm.
them those peripheral views that are needed,
Yeah.
and be able to communicate too. You know what I mean? Sometimes when we're fatigued, I'm immediately thinking, I'm probably yawning, I'm probably stretching out the words, and before I can even say it, our member is down. You know what I mean? Uh, so it's almost like a little bit of an incorporation to
Mhm.
prepare, because those fatigue days that are outside or external factors that we can't control in some cases, they're going to come.
Yeah.
And it's how do we persevere to get to a space where we want to get to. We want to give it our best, knowing that we're probably not 100%.
Mhm.
And that's something I mean, I'm going to relate a little bit to traditional sports, where, I love, and I'm forgetting who said this, but, when they get interviewed, right, based off an injury or something like that, like, when are you going to come back? When I'm at 100%? The truth is, no one's at 100%. It's all mental, right? We all have to perform at 100%, knowing that we're probably at an 80%, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get to that, to
Yeah.
give us that competitive edge, to give us, the best, showcasing of abilities?
Yeah, and I will start kind of backwards from the beginning portion of what you said, because as you're talking, I couldn't help but to think, about the fact that I am an exercise science major, and that's my realm right there. But one of the key things, again, going back to my very first point, is self care. In order to have self preservation, you first have to have self care. And so when it comes to somebody who may ask, how do I, retain that energy, or how do I gain that energy? Self care would be adequate sleep. It will be also proper nutrition. Breaks. One of the biggest things I would hope people take away from this, and I'm sure we'll probably, I don't know where the conversation will lead us, but we'll probably get into it more, is that we all need to really invest in rest. That could be the one takeaway from this whole thing right now, is that invest in rest. We invest in so many things or whatnot, but rest is something that we could really invest in for ourselves. And it has so many crucial benefits and payoffs and payouts that sometimes I think we just forget about them. So that, in addition to proper nutrition, and making sure that we're not grabbing for the Red Bull or like the 5 hour energy drink, all those things that are going to make us go up and then quickly go down. So I would say that for sure. In incorporating exercise, it sounds a little silly maybe to say exercise when you're tired, and I wouldn't necessarily say exercise in that moment when you're tired, but I would say get into the practice and a regimen of keeping exercise as a daily part of your life, because there are so many benefits from exercise that have nothing to do with external appearance. And personally, I think that so many people associate exercise and external appearance together. And there's so many more internal benefits that we could reap from exercise than there are external benefits. So when you think about diabetes, blood pressure, when you think about all these other things that could plague us in so many ways, especially in a sport such as esports, which is so sedentary, we have to move. One thing I always say is that our bodies were created to move. And so we have to recognize that if they were created to move, then the more we sit, the more we're impeding, the very thing that we're supposed to be able to do. There's a concept that says if you don't use it, you lose it. And I'm not going to say that, you're about to start losing limbs and things like that if you don't exercise. But the thing is, when it comes to mobility, when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to all these things that are essential for life, especially when it comes to taking these same concepts and applying it in an esports realm where you are sitting and you need to have, shoulders back. You want to make sure you're not, slumped over, your shoulders are to your neck, touching your ears and things like that. Your neck is protruding forward. All these things could play such a major, part on your performance and activity. So, that's what I would say, kind of going backwards in that sense. So those would be some key things for sure. Mhm.
Thank you, Alyse, for sharing that. And it's so true, right? What our bodies were created to do, and it's to explore more movement, right? And that naturally gives us, hopefully, that the alert abilities that we're going to need, just so that we can essentially get to that space of, hey, you know what? This is now a place of where you want to be, whether it's, hey, I'm going to do this because I want to relax and this is a form of that, or I want to do this to really get in the zone because I really want to get that performance up, right? To keep me in the greater standings, if you will, in a game.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure if I touched the second part that I'm kind of thinking backwards, because that was another key thing that you mentioned and asked about was alertness. And, going back to those same things, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, they all aid and are going to affect how alert you are or how fatigued you are. And therefore, once again, that cycle of performance,
Right, right. And it's so true. The more, I hear cycles and I hear, just like anything, right? If you really want to get it good at something, you're going to have to practice. And the more that you can incorporate knowing that, hey, if I'm a college student out there, knowing that I'm balancing, so much more than I've ever had to balance in my life, right? At this stage of your life, knowing that there's more too beyond that, but college is a great place to get yourself immersed into what the real world is going to look like, right? And being, fatigue is going to happen, naturally, and it might happen, more at a higher frequency rate for others, right? So understanding that if you have a busy schedule but you want to incorporate something like, hey, I want to improve because I really like being part of this team, or being part of the experience in some shape, form, or capacity, then during the practice of that actual session, it's almost important to even just kind of take mental notes, or at least note it down and write it down. Say, hey, you know what? Before I actually go into this match or into this map or what have you, I'm going to note down how many hours of sleep I got. Maybe my Fit watch or my Fit phone or whatnot. I'm not saying to invest in all that. That's great that it's there. But even just simple like note taking, like, you know what? I came in with maybe just like, I don't know, 4 hours of sleep. And, obviously my percentage there, I didn't really contribute that much. And let's see what it looks like when I get 6, to make these gradual pushes. And then you start noticing, hey, I'm doing this as almost like a self-awareness, self-preservation, self-care movement that in turn ends up in results for our team. So that we can essentially make those pushes to be preventative, thinking that, hey, how come we're not getting any better? And then start looking at others thinking it's their fault. It's more, hey, what can we do within a team to kind of be like forthtelling? Because in college, there is, everyone's going to take, a midterm, you know what I mean? And maybe it's at the same time. Like, what is it that you do knowing that you're going to have to balance a lot, and fatigue is something you're going to have to combat, that we can essentially, with the little time that we have, maximize that time?
Well, I will say what you mentioned as far as tracking your hours of sleep, that is something that's, really key. If people follow, for example, professional basketball players, or not just basketball, but any professional athlete, they are really big on sleep. We think about this bubble environment that the WNBA players are in, the NBA players are in. I think baseball, they even finally created their own bubble and stuff like that. But, one of the things that I heard is that some people actually purchase a bed to have while they're there. And that just gives you a sign of how crucial and how important sleep is to them as individuals. And so if we think about that on the pro level, think about that, and they're no different than us in that same sense. We all need sleep. Just because they're a pro athlete, it doesn't mean that they need any more hours of sleep than we do, because we're all performing. They just have a different set of physical performance activities that they do daily. So when you're balancing school, when you're balancing, work, if, the college student is a student assistant, or if they work off campus or anything like that, it's a matter of making every moment count. And so one thing I would suggest is that right there, which is tracking the number of hours that you're sleeping and measuring it to your performance. And not just that, I would even take it a step further and say, if this person is a fan of tracking, and even if they're not, some things we don't know that we like them until we actually do them, but I'll even track it in regards to nutrition. Did I eat crappy this day? Did I give my body any of the nutritional supplements that it needs? Did I eat a bag of chips for breakfast? Or did I get a cookie, you know what I mean, for lunch? And that was my lunch. A cookie is not lunch, chips, that's not breakfast or anything like that. So you want to make sure your body is getting adequate protein, the right amount of carbs. Sometimes people fear carbs. Carbs are actually good. It's just a matter of eating the right ones.
Right, right. No, right. The complex carbs, at least.
These are the ones that are actually going to provide fuel, because carbs, that's like the number one fuel source for your body.
Right.
Protein and things like that, those things are going to allow you to have sustainability. So I would say when they do have those moments of time, make sure that when it's eating time, make sure you're eating something that's good.
Right.
And nutritious or well balanced, and even if it's not a full meal, making sure those snacks are valuable snacks.
Right.
And when it comes to tracking that information to see, did my sleep and did my nutrition line up accordingly? Because maybe my sleep was good, my eating was poor, and now I don't have the energy that I need, not because I didn't get a good amount of sleep, but because I have no fuel for my body to maybe
right.
Utilize. And
right.
It works different ways and things like that. But overall, I would say keep that in mind. And also going back to like the time blocks, I would say find a way to get a nap in. Naps are so crucial. Yeah. If you have 15 minutes, get it.
Get it. Right.
No. Car naps are sometimes the best nap you will ever have.
No, I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I know what you mean. Yes. And 15 minutes, man, sometimes it feels like you got that hour, perhaps, you know what I mean? And I'm with you. I'm totally with you on that. If you can, maybe that's what you do for lunch. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm going to take a quick nap.
Yes, exactly. And it's important to make sure that it's the proper amount of time, because sometimes it's not taking advantage of your time. So if you have an hour, it might not be the wisest thing to sleep the whole hour for a number of reasons. Sometimes if our body goes into such a deep sleep, like sleeping for an hour, when we wake up and if we were already previously fatigued, we're not necessarily restoring our body to 100%. We actually might be disturbing our sleep cycle a little bit, or we might even wake up feeling a little bit more groggy. I think we've all felt that. We've taken a nap and then we've waken up and we're even more tired than what we were. Fell asleep.
Yeah.
And there's a reason behind that, but making sure I was make a suggestion and say that any nap you should take should be between 15 and 30 minutes. Maybe even 10 and 30 minutes, but I really wouldn't recommend exceeding a 30-minute mark, because that's exactly what it is a nap. It's not, a night's rest.
Right.
And so we're not supplementing that. So making sure the hours that you invest are crucial and beneficial, and, capitalizing on it as best as you can, and communicating with others to let them know, hey, respect my time. This is my sleep time. This is my study time. This is our gaming time. And making sure that even if you are more zealous about one thing over the other thing, to not switch out those times. Just because a classmate might not have class at 1 doesn't mean that you skip class, or just because a classmate doesn't have a test doesn't mean that you refrain from putting in 2 hours of study compared to 1 hour because now you want a game. And that could have so many other effects as well too.
That's such a good point. I mean, gosh, everything I'm hearing you say, at least, like, I can't help but think, like, a little bit of preparation is going to go a long way. And the more we're thinking, again, self-care, what you said earlier in the process of getting yourself into a space where you're helping others, is it's almost like, okay, if this is my block of schedule, maybe even just to be a little bit more proactive and say, look, I'm going to schedule even a nap of 15 minutes within the schedule before I actually commit to the next thing I'm going to do.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, I've never thought about this, but in my head, I'm thinking, I have an appointment, and that is, I got an appointment with a pillow right now, just so that you can get, more out of me, more energy out of me. So you're going to thank me later once I take this appointment.
I'm actually late for my date.
I'm actually late for my pillow right now. Such a good point, though. I mean, but again, why is it that we forget this? Why is it that we don't do this? Or why is it that, we feel in this constant rush and need to, we got to be on the go. And, it's such a rush. And I think that's where we get to that zone, and we don't really think about that importance of nap. Yeah, sure. I'll maybe do that on the weekend if I've
Mhm.
got time. And even at that, there's probably no chance I'll get a nap in.
And you can
Um,
do it next weekend.
yeah. But what you said earlier on is a lot of this, the fatigue piece. If you're feeling like you're having a lot of that, it's about breaking the cycle to begin with, right? You have to take the pre-planning, just like how you have to pre-plan for your nutrition, right?
Mhm.
Pre-plan a little bit of nap time.
Yeah,
But it's
definitely.
such complimentary now that you've shared it in the way you just shared it now,
Mhm.
that that will go a long way so that you're ready for the actual performance that you're going to give and deliver in esports or anything too.
Exactly. And one thing I actually just started, when I say just as in like
Mhm.
yesterday.
Oh, it's fresh.
Fresh and fresh. So I don't even know if I just talk about it. But I will
Yeah.
say I've been reaping the benefits, so I think. But the point that I was gonna make is that I've been transitioning for a day now from a to-do list to a time block
Ah,
calendar. Because what I was noticing is that I have a long list of to-dos, and the only thing that happens to my to-do list is I knock a to-do off, and then
mm,
another one gets put back on. And
ah,
so now I'm in, once again, what we talked about as a cycle is just now the cycle of to-dos. And
ah.
I'm starting to get mentally fatigued because all I see is a list of to-dos, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I did 6 things in like 3 hours, but my list is now 2 times longer.
Right.
So what I started to recognize is that maybe a time block or a time calendar will be different than an actual to-do list. So maybe not, because some to-dos that we have, they're never going to be completed in that one sitting that we expect to get them done.
Right.
It may be because you're working with a group mate, or you may be working with somebody else or something pending. You can't take action until somebody else is taking action. And so recognizing that this to do may not get knocked off because of some other factor, but recognizing that if I am able to work on my portion of it for a set amount of time, do I feel accomplished? And within this, what, 32, not even 32, within this like 24 plus hours, I will say that. And I did a little research on this even beforehand, and I found like a webinar that this guy did. I wish I could remember his name. And he talked about the same thing of saying, if we eliminate the to-do list, they're still to-dos, but putting them on a calendar and saying, I'm going to commit 1 hour to this, I'm going to commit 30 minutes to this, and having your day planned out. So now my little personal whiteboard says 30 minutes to watch this video for school. Even though it may be 3 videos that my teacher uploaded, I'm going to invest 30 minutes to watch this first one. Hopefully, if it's say a 20-minute video, my hope is that I finish it. And if not, know that I still accomplished a large portion of what that task was. And even though large may not seem like all 3 videos, it's something that's now been accomplished, and really laying out the day for everything that you have. So saying, this is what I'm going to do in this hour, this hour, and this hour. And even if you're not saying 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock specifically, because that's not something I'm doing, but I'm saying within the day, I have 5.5 hours worth of work that I need to get done. This is the amount of time in between that I have is going to be dead time. And dead time is just that planned time that I know maybe 2 hours throughout the day here and there, that's going to allow me to do other random things, like when I get distracted from my cell phone, or when a call comes in from work that I wasn't anticipating that took maybe 15 minutes of my time. Just making sure that no matter what time you set aside for yourself, you stick to it. And I would say that's something I would suggest. I'm no expert at it just yet, but it is something that I do think, based off the research that I was doing and the webinar that I listened to in my 1.5 days of application, that's
No.
been something that does seem like it can have great rewards.
Yeah. No, thank you, Elise, for sharing that. And we'll have to re-invite you back, hopefully maybe 30 days from now and see how it's going.
Yeah.
I mean, but it makes sense though. I mean, even, you hear, these to-do lists or hit lists or time, they're called so many different things. And what's really the purpose for that, right? Is it, what's the goal and the outcome? Sometimes we're stuck, right? And in essence, it's a great way to feel like you're getting something accomplished. And if really that is the great reward from creating something like that, knowing that, yes, we live in hectic times and we're constantly moving, and that's just how our society is just currently structured. But we have to break from that norm and those cycles that essentially give us that basically gets us stuck sometimes.
Yeah, and I would even
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
not to cut you off, but one thing
no,
I've
no, yeah,
noticed with myself and with colleagues and coworkers is that at the end of the workday, say you work 8 to 5, and
right,
you have all these things in your mind that you're going to do, and then the end of the day comes, and you look at your mental to-do list or your written to-do list, and you say, I only did one thing on this list. Like, what did I do today? And it's not that you didn't do anything at work today. You may have put out a little fire here at work. You may have
right,
responded to 20 emails that maybe you didn't jot down. It's not that those aren't accomplishments, but sometimes if we have the to-do list and we have it wrote out but nothing's checked off, at the end of the day we're left with that feeling that I've heard and I've experienced of like, what the heck did I even do today? And it's like, it's not that I didn't do anything, it's
right,
just I didn't do the things that I intended to do. But finding that balance, but at least maybe in this sense, I don't know, it gives you a different perspective of how to execute.
right, right. I think you said it right there. That perspective of execution is really key, because it's how we perceive ourselves. And if anything, that I've learned just over the years, that we're always going to be a little bit harder on ourselves, um,
Right.
and because of that, that's the piece that we have to get to, where again we're breaking the cycle to actually say, hey, just because a to-do list has been something that has been implemented for many times, maybe I need to switch it up right now and actually focus on more of these time blocks instead, which is an interesting approach, which I totally hear. But again, Elise, so then, some of the questions that that I would capture from some of the students prior, I do want to ask, but I also want to jump into a question that was actually shared with us on the chat, and I appreciate that. The question comes from, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, Alyse, and if I am, forgive me. How much does nutrition play a part in enhancing performance? Thank you for that question.
I would say nutrition is crucial.
Mm.
People think about practice and the hours of practice I put in. Yes, that's going to enhance your skill, but nutrition is so key when it comes to being the fuel that you need to continue to practice. So I would say when it comes to even esports players, because it's a little bit different for an esports athlete compared to a contact sports athlete. And I know there's that conversation within the gaming community of our esports players athletes, and it's that argument, and I won't even lay on one side or the other too much, but I will say that esports players always put in work. They're gaining skill sets and they're working towards a craft, just as we would if it was a physical contact game, or even if it was, a professional career. It's something that you're dedicating your time to. But anything that you invest energy in, you need to have energy within to be able to produce your end result. So if the end result is improving your craft as a esports game player, then nutrition is crucial. And I would like to say that when it comes to just eating and stuff, we have to keep in mind that for esports athletes, they're sedentary. So we want to make sure that the food that we're eating is good for ourselves and good for our bodies, because if we don't have that opportunity to stand up and move around, we might actually we might have more negative effects on our body if we're not eating the most adequate sources of nutrition. And you want to make sure you combat those things, or not combat, but you want to make sure you complement those things with movement, making sure that you get up and move around. So I would say you can't have proper nutrition without making sure you also have self-care when it comes back to physical activity. So nutrition is very much so key. And I would say you still need it for that mental alertness. You still need it to provide that energy. So it is a little bit different compared to contact sports, but it's essential for your daily life, as well as anything that you want to do beyond the normal daily living activities. And that's when it comes to performance. That's when it comes to exerting extra effort. And when you are gaming, you're doing just that. You're exerting an extra effort into one physical task. So nutrition is something that you definitely want to pay attention to and make sure you give proper care to, especially when it comes to, even like vitamins and stuff like that. I know that kind of deviates a little bit, but when I think about nutrition, I think about, well-balanced meals and making sure that you have the vitamins that you need to provide you the energy to go throughout the day, because most Americans are vitamin deficient in certain vitamins. Vitamin D and vitamin B are some of the things that are going to actually give you energy. And those are also some of the same things that people are lacking, in so many ways. That, and I believe calcium, those are among the top, maybe like 5. Don't quote me directly, but I think those are among the top 5 vitamins that people are deficient in. And when we think about B12, that's something that people know to give you energy per se. People take B12 tablets and different things like that. So I would say it's definitely crucial or whatnot. It just applies a little bit differently because I would say because you are performing in a different manner than a contact sports athlete.
Yep, makes total sense what you just shared, Alyse. Thank you. And I think what I'm also hearing, again, the difference in activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a physical contact or not, right? It almost sounds like it's more imperative that we should take nutrition almost to a higher degree because it's, again, we're not necessarily in that physical space where the body is actually doing more movement than others. And so it sounds like that would be a key, if any, to help combat a lot of the fatigue that naturally comes in just any activity that anybody does.
Yeah.
But sorry, you wanted to share more.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's also, if you think about like protein, so many athletes talk about getting protein and, whether they're
Right.
somebody who just lifts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or somebody who is actually running up and down a field. Everybody has different protein intakes that they need to have for one, adequate protein levels, but then also for performance. And so when I mentioned that, it works differently for everybody. An esports athlete probably doesn't need to have the same amount of protein that a linebacker is trying to get in on a daily basis.
True.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that protein, for example, isn't essential to an esports athlete, because those are the very things that help make our muscles and our body strong when it comes to supporting our musculoskeletal system. So when it comes to having, endurance and things like that, even as little as enduring your posture in a chair for an hour of time during a competition, all those things are crucial and key. But that's what I mean when I say it's a little bit different. So what I would advise for a football player would be different from an esports player, and which will be different from a tennis player. It all depends on what your activity level is.
Right.
It is very crucial and essential for not just our daily living, but for the performance that we're trying to engage in.
Gosh, that's such a great point. I just see even opportunity out there. Like if you even talk to, parent, I'm just thinking about, students or kids that are playing games, looking to reach another optimal level of performance, to say, hey, look, parents, I'm really into this. I need your support. But I want to look and research what it is that's going to get me to that next level. Not just committing the gaming hours, but at the same time, what happens in return in my stationary position. If I'm in this particular chair, if I'm in this particular desk, if I'm looking at a screen for X amount of hours, that could, start receiving diminish in vision. Whatever I'm intaking, I need to intake what it is that will complement the body that is currently putting into the state.
Yes.
So sorry to, but you said something so key that I thought I just want to embellish it a little bit more, because I think sometimes we think that we need to eat like perhaps somebody that is in a very high demanding physical space. And that could be totally the misdirection and misguidance that could be affecting what it is that is causing perhaps even the fatigue. So sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there. I was just like, gosh, such a good point.
Just in it.
In preparation. Yeah, I'm in it with you. I'm in it.
Yeah, but no, you were right on. And I was just gonna say that's so key. You have to apply to what is the stress that you're putting on your body right now. And
Right.
put into my body, how is that going to help me in my external output.
Right.
So if
Well said.
eyes are very key for gaming. If you can't see, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to be the most beneficial player to the team. Now, don't get me wrong. There's
Right.
other technologies out there and stuff like that that's all inclusive for all players.
Right.
But so you want to make sure you get your your beta carotene. You want to make sure you get all those things that are going to be essential and crucial for you. And I can't help. I feel like I'm on like a soapbox now, but I can't help but go back to that same thing with exercise. So it's like what you put into your body is what you're going to get out, but at the same time, the love and that TLC that you give to your body is also going to help in performance too.
Yeah.
When I think about gaming, I really want to stress to gamers, hand exercises and exercise overall, stretches and things, because when you're in a sedentary position, or when you're in a position, you said something about the position that we're going to be in. If you think about, the starting position of a track player.
Right. Yes.
Track runner. Or when you think about the defensive stance of a basketball player, or the defensive stance of a football player, what position are they going to be in? And so when you talk to strength coaches, and when you talk to just different people who help players enhance their performance, what they like to do is they would like to find ways to help them not only be comfortable in that position, but to be stronger. We hear the term coming out the gate.
Yeah.
So you hear for track runners, when you need to come out the gate, you need to come out the blocks quickly. So they do exercises that are going to help make them strong. They're eating a certain amount of protein that their body can utilize in the ways that, and I won't get into the details of it, but in the ways that the body needs to utilize protein to have them get stronger, or different things. So it's like, what is going to be most beneficial for you in the environment that you're in that's going to help you get strong? So pay attention to not just your eating and those things that are going to help sustain you, especially when it comes to like endurance, but making sure that with that it complements other activities such as hand stretches, such as shoulder stretches.
Right.
And one of the things I would say just right now for esports players is practice YTWs. That's a stretch basically, but it's basically, I don't want to come out of frame, but a Y is straight up, a T is out, and a W is side. And making those shapes. So it's just when you are in a certain position, your shoulders are no longer slouching forward, but making sure that you give that full body care. It's not just about eating. It's not just about exercise. It's about the whole body overall. When it comes to combating fatigue, and when it comes to really nipping this thing in the bud, taking all those steps to make sure you're investing in self in the way you need to: eat, nutrition, exercise. Now, stretching is a whole nother component, I would say, in itself.
Brilliant. Gosh, I'm taking it all in. And I love the YTW just reference right now, and easy enough to remember. And again, this is all preparation and to get us in that state where we're breaking or starting new cycles, right? And to get us to that optimal level of performance in esports, which is, again, demanding, like anything too, that you want to be truly, truly great at. But something that was shared as a comment, and thank you. And thank you, Alyse. Thank you for the comments. And it is something as a comment to say, isolating stressors and developing effective coping strategies help optimize performance while playing at the highest level. Gosh, that was well articulated. Couldn't say it better myself.
I couldn't say it better.
Yeah, Alyse, brilliant. What can I say? I'm glad we incorporated that in there, because it's almost, yes, there's a lot of external factors, right? And something, again, you mentioned about the mental side of it as well. It's not just the physical. There's a complement that goes hand in hand into the mental space. I mean, you could be facing who knows what that's very difficult that you're fighting, and nobody knows about it. And you've been doing that all day. And then you finally get to your space, your time that you've been slotted to practice with your team. And, or maybe, helping the team out in a production way, another role. And getting to that space where you're now ready to, I'm so tired, but I'm here and I'm happy I'm here, but I can't shake this fatigue away because I'm dealing with something that is overwhelming. And, it's almost like as much as possible, as we want to incorporate self-care as better teammates, to call out our teammates for a little bit, just say, hey, we're doing a quick fatigue check. You know what I mean? And I think about my soccer days where you had a referee to check if you had your equipment on, right? Hey, we're doing a shin guard check or checking your cleats to see if there's any metal studs or anything like that.
Start checking
Let's check our, yeah, seriously, get the flashlight out. but it's like, hey, let's do a quick pulse check. How's everybody? How are you? You know what I mean? And just even starting that as a natural way to say, this is what we do as a routine, so that we know, hey, you know what? Let's take it easy a little bit on, X player right now. They're going through something, and whether they shared it or not, but right now fatigue is high. And perhaps it's even better to take a step out, but if you need to be in because of certain circumstances, then understand that, hey, how can you become a better teammate to respond to somebody that is fatigued but needs to keep going? You know what I mean? I guess that's something I'd like to ask you, Alyse, like, what would you recommend?
Well, when we were talking, two things came to mind. First, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, that's right.
If the common goal is to win, then we need to have those conversations ahead of time before game day, during practice, to make sure that we all are on one accord or whatnot. So I really like that idea of the team check-in. How are we doing today? Is this a Madness Monday? Is this a Friday? Is this a too tired Tuesday? Let's check in, team. We're a team, so the whole purpose is for us to, communicate and stuff like that with one another. And so it comes with the level of transparency and honesty. But I also think one of the beauties is when it comes to getting to know your teammates, you can also kind of check to see if they're maybe, trying to just graze the truth, or maybe, not tell the whole truth.
Yeah.
Because they want to play. How many times do we see players who actually did kind of tweak the ankle a little bit, say, nah, coach.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't take me out. Not today. This little ankle we will
not today.
Tomorrow. Catch me after 5. I'm coming out, coach. How many times do we see that? So when it comes to that, make sure you have that transparency with your teammates, but also recognizing, hey, I actually think whomever is actually really tired right now, or maybe seeing what ways can we make the greatest sacrifice for the team. If we're so concerned about winning,
right,
winning, everybody loves to win.
Yeah,
everybody loves to win, whether it's the lotto, whether it's a free ring, whether it's a championship ring, whatever it is. People like the whole element of winning. But what good is winning if you're sacrificing a teammate at the end of the day? Because what you're going to win in this temporary moment might not be the best thing that they're going to gain as a consequence of this long-term moment afterwards. And what they gain is a long-term injury. We talk about fatigue, but what are some other injuries that people might deal with? And I know this topic isn't so much about injuries, but we have to recognize that a lot of injuries also come from poor performance, fatigue, the wrong mental state. When you are tired, you begin to play sloppy. How many times are we yelling at the TV from somebody making careless mistakes or whatnot? And I just think about, even now, since it's going on, the finals games and stuff like that, players are playing back to back to back. Everybody has a good game, everybody has a bad game. But what are some of those key things that are going to affect the team as a whole, in totality? And so just being honest and communicating, I would say, is one thing that would be something I would suggest. And knowing your teammate to the core, in the sense of knowing this is not what this person looks like when they're alert. I know this face. This is the face of tiredness or whatnot, or this is the face of mental anxiety or mental depression or whatnot. So even though this win is something that we want, or maybe this is the person we've been practicing with, and this is our key player, maybe we need to figure out, is it smarter to substitute? And that's a big compromise, and that's a big sacrifice. And sometimes it's a scary thing, especially when maybe you think about, a playoff game on the line. I know the CSUDH Esports Association, you guys have been playing, back-to-back games against different universities and stuff like that. And we all want the one up on the next school. But are we going to forget about, our brethren in the midst? And we don't want to do that. So I would
Right.
just say, my suggestion and what I would advise is just having those mental check-ins, like you mentioned, and just having that communication.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's so true. And again, there's situations where, you know, the fatigue level, I mean, it's a matter of, when competition is at its best, right? It's going to be a matter of who makes the first mistake, right? Or who makes the tiniest mistake. And that will be the difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
And to mentally be prepared to be there at that state takes so much energy out of you.
It does.
And just even alone, just the nerves too, to even get to that space where you have to overcome that, to
Mm-hmm.
even see if your hands are being jittery or not. Do you feel still? Do you feel like you're alert? Are you
Mm-hmm.
at almost the same level? I mean, again, nobody is at 100% ever. You know what I mean? We're all just doing our best to emulate what 100% looks like.
Yeah.
Um,
You're going to sacrifice certain things that are going to
yeah,
affect your 100%. So
right.
say, and what I mean by that, I'll give an example.
Okay.
Say somebody does not feel they're 100%. Say they feel, about 60 and they're trying to get to about 75, 80. So they take, a espresso shot, or they drink coffee, or
Mm,
they have a Red Bull, or whatever the case may be. Those things that they did to make themselves better in that moment, is it really making them better in that moment?
mm,
Talk about jittery hands. You don't want to have jittery hands when the main thing you need is hand-eye coordination to play.
right, right,
So are these things going to impede you in your performance as a result of something you're trying to do to compensate for what you actually feel?
right. Oh yeah.
So
No,
just
no.
another thing that we have to kind of talk about and think about.
Yeah, it's so true. And this is something I'll share too, because, even in the days of playing, we had to learn, if our teammates are at their best, like you mentioned, hey, you don't look so good. And you got to just be honest with them.
Mm-hmm.
And because we all have been there in one shape or form or another, or at that same time, even at certain days, then we have to learn how to play still, in the sense that we've planned and prepared what it looks like when we're at this state.
Yes.
Let's not do anything that is going to put us in a more fragile state, because we're already fragile, but we can't tell that to the other team, right? That's intel that could essentially help the other team take a victory over you, right? So it's so much mental, strategies that essentially you can say, hey, you know what, let's hold back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not, we know that internally, and that's why we communicate, and that's why we got to be open. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we're not, then we're pushing our teammates inadvertently
Yeah.
to a space that could put them in a more debilitating state afterwards. And that's not the outcome that anybody wants. And so even just learning how to manage something to that state. But again, this here is how to combat it so that you're not getting to that state in the first place. So I throw that in there just because I know that to start any new cycle, and I hope this inspires more people to do so, it's going to take some time, realistically, if you really want to invest
Yeah.
into your performance.
Definitely. Definitely. Another thing when I think about,
Mhm.
just performance overall and just the whole esports environment, we have to make sure that we're giving ourselves screen breaks, especially not just in the sports environment, but in this virtual environment. I'm sure there's been talks maybe in the past, or people have heard about blue light. Blue light
Yes,
is only
blue
so
light, right?
to a certain extent or whatnot. But if you're gaming at night, or if you're on your phone all throughout the night and different things, so basically, I'll just say what happens is that blue light after so long can suppress the. Why am I getting tongue tied?
No
Excuse
worries.
me. Blue light after so long can suppress the hormone. There he is. Melatonin that gets secreted into your bloodstream. So we all heard about melatonin. There's a thing in a turkey that makes you sleepy after Thanksgiving. That's how much people get whatnot. But blue light after so long, it could suppress that sleep hormone from being secreted in the manner that it needs to be. So it could trick the brain into thinking I'm alert and I need to remain alert, and so therefore I'm keeping myself alert. And so it's basically going back to, we talked about it from a nutritional standpoint, what you're putting into your body, but we also have to look at it from, external standpoint of what are we radiating into our body. So when it comes to just team environments when it comes to esports and taking care of your body and making sure you do things to combat fatigue. I can't help but also make the recommendation of making sure you take screen breaks. So I said before, invest in rest. If that could be the one takeaway, let that be it, and incorporate rest being not just a 15-minute nap, but also recognizing that rest will be me taking my eyes off of this screen. And when I say take my eyes off the screen, I'm not about to leave the TV screen and now go to my phone screen.
Right. To a different size screen, right?
We're not gonna go from this 55-inch to the 6-inch, or the computer screen in between with the laptop or anything like that. But recognizing that in this moment, I'm giving myself a break. I'm giving my shoulders a break. I'm giving my back a break. Therefore giving my eyes a break, and I'm giving my mind a break. Because we're so quick to go and live life and just keep going and keep going. But we have to recognize that breaks are crucial. Rest is needed. And it's an essential, what's the word I'm looking for? It's an essential component of daily life. We talk about different components of daily life, but rest is that essential component of daily life. And rest includes breaks, especially screen breaks.
So true. And Alyse, even just talking with you, gosh, you're just ideas ideating here. Every time you say back, I can't help but like correct my own back right now, like even in my posture. But even just like, even in the height of the moment, when you're in the game, there's so much communication happening, in multiple ways too, voice, typing, just so many different ways to communicate and to be concise. But even just talking within the game to say, hey, everybody, how we feel? All right, here we go. Backs, postures, good posture position. Our backs need to be upright, take a deep breath. All right, here we go. Let's go. It's something that we can incorporate in the language of the actual game. You know what I mean? So that
make it part of the game plan.
Make it part of the game. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
In game we play, we always have a game day strategy. With game day strategy, we always have a plan. You know what I mean? So that has to be part of the game day plan at all times. And not just the game day plan, but the practice day plan.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, because it's so easy that you'll gravitate and you'll say, gosh, maybe in match number 1, I'm like this, but by the time on number 10, I'm already like this and hunched over, and you don't realize that you're doing it because you're so into it, right?
Yeah.
And again,
until afterwards.
Right.
Think about how many hours a day you're in that position, and you don't realize it until your work day is done or your match is done or whatever it is that's done. And you're just like, I got a little kink. I'm trying to stretch on my back, and you're trying to figure out why you feel tight. You're always moving your arm or different things, but you have to think it's that subconscious position that your body has inherited because of habit.
Right.
If the habit is slouching in the chair, if the habit is curvature, if the habit is any of these things, your body is very well at adapting, and sometimes it doesn't always adapt the best habits. So we have to tell our bodies what we want it to do, and one of the ways that we do that is by putting practice and implementing these practice protocols or whatnot. And so that's what I would say for every team. And even if it's not a team environment or a competition, if you're just playing at home by yourself, making sure that you incorporate that in your daily home activity while playing to make sure you give yourself, a nice little break.
Yeah. Gosh, Alyse, man, I could sit here and talk all day with you, honestly, and to learn more and strategize even more so. But we are already at that time. And if you don't mind, at least this is the part, and I feel like you've already gave us a plethora of it, but this is where I ask, every guest to give us some words of wisdom to take us home with.
Okay, words of wisdom. I would say what you do today affects your tomorrow. I would also say 15 minutes of activity is better than 15 hours of no activity. So even a little bit helps. And I would say, after this, get up and stretch.
There you go. You know what? I love that. And thank you, Alyse. There's obviously more to come. We have to invite you back for more.
I love that. Yeah, especially as a DH alum.
Yeah, absolutely. You're already part of the family as it is. So of course, whenever we have you in, it feels like a family reunion already. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Yusuf Andrews, who's our producer, who makes all this happen. Thank you, Yusuf. And also in the very beginning, in our introduction, if you view this later, we incorporated the CSUDH pep band music. And so that music is all from our DH students who are just composing masterful pieces. What can I say? I'm a big fan of theirs. So please check them out. Also, they'll be doing their own Twitch channel very soon. Feel free to tune in once they get that up and running. For now, that's it for today. Get up and stretch after this, and we look forward to having you again. All right, everybody, take care.